Welcome to episode 155 of the Sports Geek podcast. On this week's episode, we visit San Diego State University to chat with Scott Minto about their Sports MBA program.
Welcome to the Sports Geek podcast, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals.
And now, here's your host, who uses Digisport Sports Biz and SM Sports hashtags equally, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. Yes, over 160 sports business executives have been on this podcast, and I'm very thankful for them giving up their time to talk to me, Sean Callanan from Sports Geek. You're listening to the Sports Geek podcast. You might be doing that on iTunes. You might be doing it on your favourite podcast app and mine, Pocket Cast. You might be doing it on the new Google podcast player. Apparently Google is launching a native podcast player to rival iTunes, which could be a big mover in the space if you're listening to podcasts on Android. And if you have listened to the Mary Meeker episode, you'll know what the size of the market share that Android has. So as always, if you want to reach out to me, as Scott did, as someone who stopped by the office when he was in Melbourne a couple of years ago, he recently asked me when I was in LA, where I am recording this intro and outro. He said, come down to San Diego State and talk to my students and have a look around San Diego. So happy to take up the offer. And we talk about what we did on that day. And then I chatted to his students in the San Diego State Sports MBA program. So I hope you enjoy this chat, talking about how people can, advance their careers and how they need specialised training and they need a little bit extra to get into the world of sport. So here's my chat with Scott Minto, Director of the San Diego State University Sports MBA program. Very happy to be here at the campus of SDSU, San Diego State University, with the Director of the San Diego State University Sports MBA, Scott Minto. Welcome to the podcast.
Sean, so great to have you here at Sports MBA Global Headquarters.
And thank you very much for hosting me today and bringing me down to San Diego. We've had a fun morning. This is post Seed Conference in Atlanta, and just come down here for the day. And a little get together called Comic-Con is in town. It brings out the strange folk.
It's like the circus coming through. We love it.
Yeah, we love it, and so luckily enough to get a photo and troll my younger son, who's a big geek like his dad, and look forward to maybe coming back and partaking a bit more Comic-Con. So, but the main reason I'm here is to talk to you and return the visit. You came by Sports Geek HQ a couple of years ago now. You're in town meeting people, and we've known each other for a couple of years, and I wanted to sort of dive in on how the Sports MBA program is different, what you're trying to offer, what the students are coming for. So do you want to give us a bit of a rundown of, the Sports MBA program here at SDSU?
Absolutely. So the Sports MBA is unique amongst the offerings in that space, in which we are an MBA program that is exclusively geared toward people that want to work in the business of sport. So First and foremost, it's an MBA. It's not a sports administration or sports management program. We are an MBA. If you look over there on my wall, it says Master of Business Administration. I am a graduate of the program, so proud alum here. But the benefit of it is you're learning the sport industry, which you want to go into. It's a big industry, as you know, but you're doing it from the benefit of the manager's training. So you're getting a diverse offering of classes that are typical for an MBA. So it's an accredited MBA. So you have your finance, accounting, statistics, management, marketing, all the things that any MBA worldwide would take. But each of those courses is tailored to the sport industry. So our faculty come from primarily the College of Business. We have a few free agent signings that we bring in to big bats in the lineup, but we have primarily faculty that come from their own unique field that they're experts in, and they tailor the finance course, the accounting course. We'll look at what skills you need in that subject for the sports industry to be successful.
Because it is, the sports industry is a unique industry, and it's a very competitive one. I mean, we were talking over lunch, when I asked Mark Cuban, his advice to go work in sports business, it was one word, it was don't. Like, it's super competitive. So are you finding that you're getting a lot of students coming in because they want that extra edge and wanting to have a bit more insights into the sports space?
Yeah, precisely. It's a way in that is atypical of the sport industry. You find a lot of people that are in the C-level people that Mark will be talking to with the Mavericks would be maybe they work their way up selling tickets, or they work their way up coming in the venue side and selling programs or something like that.
Yep.
Well, people are specializing nowadays, and MBAs that are specific to an industry are more and more common. So a sport MBA program sort of gives students a leg up in the process, where it is a very impacted industry where people all want to be. The demand for those jobs is so much greater than the supply. So we give students an edge in not just the content that they're learning, so the skills that they have in their tool belt, but it's also having a small, tight-knit family of 300 or so alumni that we have. Those are the people that'll be looking out for you, that'll give you your first big break. So yeah, without any, Mark's right, without any leg in the door, or foot in the door, sorry, without any
it's just tough to get. I mean, it's tough to get in. It's super competitive.
If you don't know people, forget it. If you don't have the skills, it's impossible.
And you think there's an advantage because it's not a large intake. It's not like you're going to a big college, intake with 500 people, and you don't get to know everyone in your year. I was lucky enough, back when I was in college and did a Bachelor of IT back in the day, but it was a scholarship base, which was rare in Australia. But there was only 40 people in our year level, so you knew everybody. And you're super well connected, even across 3 years of the intake. I got to know other people in other years. You think that the closeness of the alumni sort of helps the experience?
Without question. I mean, we have alumni that are hiring one another. We have alumni that come back and hire from our graduates, constantly looking at our graduating classes and where they end up. And we had people recommending, oh, this job's not for me, but you should talk to this person in my class. Just before we started recording, I got a text from a guy who graduated a month ago, just got a job at Nike. He'll be moving up to Oregon, very excited about it. So the closeness of the alumni and not just placement and job opportunities, but like working on projects and pushing each other really helps drive the success of the group, because you are very close. I've been in 2 weddings now. One was in Melbourne. That's the reason we met in your backyard. But I've been a member of 2 wedding parties that were classmates of mine from this program. And that's really important when you have those tight relationships like you had with your mates from the Bachelor. That breeds a lot of success, because you have close people in an industry that's very much about who you know and how connected you are.
So, there's multiple ways of doing an MBA. My younger brother did his part-time over a couple of years, and there's a couple of different ways. Well, how's the program work here?
Well, it's the complete opposite of that. Yep. We throw you in the deep end of the pool. We're an intensive program. It's an entire MBA of 45 units of coursework done over an 18-month period. So we start in January. We bring you in, and it's like a trial by fire. We start with statistics, finance, accounting, marketing, all in the first semester. And when you get here, the first thing on the calendar for you is a behind the ropes experience volunteering at the Farmers Insurance Open right up at Torrey Pines. So our good friends there at the Century Club bring us in and say, okay, you're the tweet caddies, you're the social media people, you're working with farmers, you're working with these other activations, and the students really get a hands-on experience right from the outset. So we push you hard. The classes are 3 days a week. The other 2 days a week, usually students, we have so many opportunities here in San Diego. They're interning or they're working on projects, and primarily for sports organizations, usually for alumni, they'll say, hey, we'll come up with some activation ideas and shoot them over to you and see what you think. But primarily they're working all the time. We go through the summer, we wrap up around Thanksgiving at the end of November, and then they have a 6-month trial where they go either get a job, which more than half of last year's graduating class had a job by December, just from all the work they were doing and all the networking. But we send you off into the industry for that 6 months. The final 6 months of the 18 months are off in a job somewhere in sports consulting. I don't like to call it an internship. It's a common phrase, but we like to call them consultants because they're graduate students. They're coming in, they have to do, you can see my office is full of, the entire cupboard there is full of these final thesis projects. We're about an inch to an inch and a half thick. Where they're consulting in a specific field within an organization, whether it's a pro team, it could be a college team, or it could be a brand.
And so they have to, in that 6 months, sort of go to that team or go to that organization and say, what's a problem that's on your plate that you haven't had the time or resources to do, and then they deep dive on that in that 6-month placement.
Precisely. If you go to an organization, they say, boy, we'd like to value our shirt sponsorship if we're going to have that, or we're looking at a new arena naming rights. So what do you think we could get for that? So the students will go back to their coursework, look through what they did. Okay, yeah, that requires a cluster analysis. I'll do that, or I'll run a regression to see which would make sense. So they have all the skills of the entire MBA at the end, so they can put them to use for whatever the organization needs. It might be new budgets. It might be they might just get a job in accounting, and so they go to our accounting professor and say, "Hey, let's work together on a project. I'll turn it over to my boss at the end of the 6 months." And if I don't have a job already, that's a fantastic audition for a full-time job, either with that organization or somewhere else.
Yep, and then it's not a guarantee, but the fact that they're doing all this networking and extra work, and they're pushed by their peers to be in the space, and then the final thing is locking in that report. If that report actually provides value to the organisation, then it's very easy to, because again, taking my experience we did 3 years with an extra year embedded in. We worked 2 summers with 2 industry placements. Most people, I think out of the 40 people in ours, we had 30 people get a job, and it is very much, and I speak to whether I'm at conferences and stuff, the interns there, it's so valuable for them to meet people, make a tiny impression. They don't need to make a massive impression. If they're remembered, they've done a good job in those type of spaces, but. The networking piece, it's the only way into sports now. Yeah.
And I think what's great about this is you have time throughout the year. So when you meet people, it's not just, I'm looking for a job. I'm unemployed right now. Can I have a job tomorrow? It's, I'm in class for a couple more months, and I've got class projects where, I could do it about Tide bleach and look and do a research project on that's never going to get seen by Tide, or I could do it for the hockey team up the road or the baseball team down the street and present to the ideas to them and say, hey, what do you think of this? Is there any value to what I'm doing? And so what you're doing is getting your work in front of people. You're kind of a consultant, an unpaid one to start, but we had a couple interns at SEAT who were strategically speaking to people after they spoke on a panel and said, boy, we really like to wrap our heads around this esports thing. And boy, we'd like to see what our fans are doing in video games and how they might translate. And, the students would approach those people and say, hey, we'll dive into that for you. We know you don't have the bandwidth to do that. If you're in the CRM team or in database marketing, you might not have time to do these wild hair research projects. And that's what students exactly have the capacity to do, to use their off days during the week to put together a product and hand it over to an alum or an organization where they've met someone and say, hey, what do you think of this? And next time a job opening comes up, they're probably at the top of the list to call.
Yeah, and you were just going through some of the people, you said half of them have got jobs. I've got some of the logos here in front of me, the Atlanta Hawks, the Ducks, the Cleveland Indians, Wasserman, LAFC, Sacramento. It's a really wide and varied group in the sports industry, and it's not just pro teams and college. There's brands that are in the sports space. There's media companies. There's non-profits and foundations. Have you found that people, students come in and they don't quite know where they want to go, and that they need this year and then the 6 months to sort of find the place they land? That do they come in thinking, I want to work in the NBA because I'm an NBA fan, and they end up being somewhere completely opposite just by the group experience?
Yeah, I take a lot of pride in changing people's minds because they come in, it's usually sports specific. Like you said, if someone's a baseball girl or guy and someone's into basketball, they want to work for the Lakers or whatever it might be, I take it on myself to broaden their horizons throughout the year and say, okay, well, great. That's plan A. Then we'll go for that. But let me show you what else is. Let me tell you about our day's specials. And we're going to talk about esports, and we're going to talk about CRM, and we're going to learn SQL throughout the year. And we're going to have speakers that are from everything you can imagine in sports, venue management. Like, I want your eyes to be opened if you're in this program to everything that's out there, because you never know where you're going to end up. And if you're a good person with numbers, that doesn't necessarily mean that you should only focus on basketball, football, baseball operations, because that line is down the block. So let's look at other ways to get in. We have several alumni, like I mentioned, we're at the SEAT conference, who work in analytics or email marketing or CRM for different sport organizations. Now, if you ask them the first week that they were in the program, I don't think they would have known that those jobs really existed. So it's nice to take the people who are turned on to sport business from Moneyball or from the book or the movie and get them in here and have them start diving further into it and seeing, wow, this whole esports world I want to give that a look. I didn't really even know there were jobs in esports. Like, yeah, there's a lot of them.
Yep.
Go look at the careers page of some of those.
There's
companies.
15 open jobs now in the NBA right now
in esports.
In esports, because they're all opening up teams. So it's a bit of a mix of getting the broad skills that an MBA gives you. Because again, like I said, it's an accredited MBA, but then having that passion to go, I'm going to investigate all of these different areas to find out where both my passion is, but where also the opportunity lies. How have you seen it? So how long has the program been going?
12 years.
12 years, and you did it when?
First year.
Yeah, so you did it the first year, and you've been working for the last 10.
Correct.
In driving it. How has, where the graduates end up, how has that changed, from a placement point of view, in a role point of view, whether it's, I've been running Sports Geek now for 8 years, and the rise of digital and the rise of data. How has that changed where your graduates are going and potentially the roles they're in now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when we started back in 2006 and put our first graduating class out there, it was a lot of folks with either college athletic departments, pro teams, a couple with brands, some with a couple of agencies. But if you think about the main three things that we've been discussing here, or what the Sports Geek does, is digital and social, CRM and database marketing and analytics, and esports.
Yep.
And we're seeing a lot of our graduates go into those spaces in ways that we never even knew were out. They weren't available in 2006. So the typical...
they just didn't exist.
No, the typical buckets of revenue for teams have always been, ticket sales, sponsorships, media rights, those types of things. So we are sending people into those areas still. A huge one being partnerships and corporate partnerships and sponsorship, but it's with an analytical background. So if you don't necessarily start on the sales side, do some great analytical ROI work to show that you can provide value to your partners, and then you're going to be looked at for a sales position pretty quickly.
Yep.
So sending people out there with better skills, better equipped for this marketplace, and also the rise of startups has been a huge one for us, to see people go and catch on with a small company and
well, that's
try
the
to grow
thing.
it.
You're never more equipped at a startup with an MBA, because he's giving you the broad, because normally as a founder and as someone who's been one, you are stretched to do everything. And so knowing enough and knowing, having skills in a broad sense that you need, that you do need it in the startup world. On the career path and sort of how the job market's shifting. Yeah, I mean, when I started Sports Geek, sports teams had guys called, and I've joked and I've used this joke for years about Jeremy McPeak. His Twitter handle used to be Sun's Webmaster, because he was the guy updating the website.
Sure. And
now those kind of guys have gone through the ranks and they're running full-on media departments, that are running these digital channels, and so that has grown, and that's where a lot of people have gone. But now the opportunity is that sponsorship partnership side to understand that piece. I mean, it was a big discussion point in Atlanta still around how do you come up with a rate card, what do we value our assets at, how do we put together a proposal, and that's all data and analytics. Mm-hmm. That's all. You've got to have some numbers to back it up. Right. I mean, yes, you can put your finger in the air and say, this is what I value this at, but unless you can go back to a report that says that, and I'm seeing more and more people come into the space that are starting to have those skills. There's not too many people that do. I called Joe Gottfried from Maple Leaf Sports. I called him a unicorn. You just don't see people that get the media side and get the digital side and how to understand the numbers. And when people have come to me, how do I break into sports? I'm like, that's the wide open spaces that there's a real big opportunity, because that will be filled soon. We'll have people that can put together campaigns, value them properly, sell them properly, because that's where the money's going to start moving.
Yeah, and that's why we put specific courses in our curriculum. We put a market research class. The students are actually in it right now for the next 2 hours. A market research course that's focused on the back end numbers and how to make decisions based on data to make good marketing decisions. So our business analytics course that they'll have this fall coming up, those are the ways that you stand out from amongst your peers, because we're also going to teach you, the Photoshop skills to build a deck. We're going to make sure you work on your presentation, your public speaking skills. So our goal is to put out as the baseball term is the 5-tool player. We want people coming out of this program to be able to do a little bit of all those things and be ready to go into any of those directions. And hopefully by the time they end up with their internship, they're specializing in a certain space, whichever the organization needs.
And take us through some of the different, program extras or the extra things that you do in the as part of the program. You're telling me about the surfboard.
Oh yeah,
the guys at Shaper.
Yeah, that's another proud alum, Chris Clark from the 2012 class, started a company here in San Diego called Shaper Studios, where you come in and you have a monthly subscription. It's a community of surfers, and they're do-it-yourself people, so they come in and craft their own surfboards, and they'll crank them out every couple weeks. They'll have a new board, or they want to try a different shape, or a longboard, or stand-up paddleboard. So his organization puts on a self-shape surf contest, it's called, and they have.
It's a bit of a tongue twister, isn't it?
Yeah, I got it out for the first time ever. So the contest and / festival is in April, and this year was the first time he came to me and said, "Hey, do you think the students would want to work behind the scenes in this thing, because it's kind of outgrown. He's an entrepreneur. It's got his own business to run. This is an event they put on top of it, and it was a really great experience for the class to sit around and say, okay, well, who are the partners we could get for this? Who are the endemic sponsors, like your surfboard, your wetsuit, your sunscreen, and there's a couple of craft beer partners that came on board. So to get to see that, to help put the event on, to help go through that, where are the trophies, who came in first, we got some media showing up. We had students working with the local TV stations to do live reports at 6 a.m. on the beach, all through setting up the event.
Yep.
Something like that is really great opportunity for you, whether you want to go into surfing or not. I mean, if you want to go work in activation
but it's the same as running events and filling stadiums and all of that kind of stuff that you're going to do, in a job at sports. And it very much that, like you're saying before, 5 but the ability of saying, well, that job needs to be done. No one else is going to do it. I'm going to do it, whether it's setting up a tent or, calling the local TV station to come down, or finding a spot that says, oh, hang on, we haven't got a logo on there. How can I sell it? Who can I sell it to? How can I provide the story behind it so that sponsor will come on board there?
Yep.
They're all skills that you have to have in sports, and they're a bit unique to sports.
Yeah. And our job is to create those skills in people that might not have had them when they showed up. They came to get an MBA, and they're going to leave as well-rounded as anybody can be. We take them to the Dominican Republic every year for over a week to go down there and learn how Major League Baseball gets talent from that country. We all know that baseball is full of Dominican stars, but my goal in going down there is to show students where these guys come from, what the communities are like. Can we look at how baseball has impacted those communities, and how the players coming out of them breed a culture of baseball only as a way out, and people as young as 5 or 6 years old practicing baseball with the goal of signing at 16 and moving over to one of the 30 academies on the island. So looking at that as sort of a socioeconomic issue, and sort of like learning, being well-rounded in that regard, because not everybody's going to go work in community relations in a baseball club or community relations anywhere. But I'm in the business of creating well-rounded people who can go off and work in an organization and be entrepreneurial about their own career. So whether you want to hire someone in an analytics role or sponsorship or community relations, they've got this background where they've put on a surf festival. They've heard from the Sports Geek about digital. They've practiced analytics and learned this really geeky software with one of our alumni. They're out in the DR sweating and doing community workshops against bullying. So they're as well-rounded as anybody you're going to find in the industry. And that is really, we're able to do that because our students love sport. Yeah. They come here. We've got a draft board behind you of all the folks who are looking at next year, and we've got their names all ready to be drafted for our next class. But they come here because they love this, and for them, it's not work. Yep. This is not, if you have a Friday and you're going to head up to LA and go on a tour of the Staples Center and hear from Aaron about CRM, like that's not work. That's a great Friday. And so we're able to do all this because sport brings the best out of people, and it's what they want to do. Yeah, and it's very much a passion thing. The looking outside into the world of sports, it does seem very glamorous. The ability to be able to take a photo in at floor level or on from the ground, or having access to great moments, that kind of thing. But I think Natalie Brown recently stated in an interview, it's still a lot of hard work. But the passion for the game, or the passion for the industry, which I think it wavers. I think some people just have a passion of I love my baseball or my basketball, and that's why I'm in it. But some people just get super passionate about the industry itself.
overall. That's what gets you up out of bed going to work. As someone who speaks to a lot of people in the space, and then they say, "Oh, I'm going to leave sports to go to a corporate job," and I'm not going to begrudge them that, but I have to warn them that the ups and downs and the highs that you can get working in sports, both from a personal point of view, but also, if you're doing content and you're pushing out content of great highlights, and then you're pushing out content of a bank video. Yeah, it's really hard work, that second one. Yeah, to get success there. So it's very unique and very rewarding. But yeah, I think passion is the main driver.
Well, yeah, hundreds of people that work in sport and across different continents, and they make on average less than a lot of the people that work in tech, that work in real estate, work in finance. And I'm the same way. I know a lot of people in sport. A lot of my friends are alumni. A lot of my alumni are friends. But the people that work in sport and love what they do every day, they may work longer hours, but I would argue that they're just happier.
Oh, it's definitely a complete work-life balance. Yeah. And it's because they love the job and they love the industry. They potentially, also love the club that they're working with, or the club or their team or the brand that they're working for. And that's where you get the reward, both the team camaraderie sort of elements. One of the other things I want to ask is that the students coming in, is it a mix of people coming straight from their degree and getting the MBA, as well as people sort of having that regret and saying, I really want to get into sports, and sort of transitioning out of another career? Is it a bit of a mix of those two?
Yeah, it is a mix. And certainly we would prefer some work experience. So if you are coming right out of undergraduate, your bachelor's, I want to see that you've been interning throughout and you're not just playing intramurals in video games.
Well, that's the case with all. Like, when people say, "Oh, I want to work in sport," you say, "Well, go back to 4 years ago, and tell you to start working in sport." Right. Because you just have to at least show credibility. And, I talk to a lot of people in sport, and you say, if I'm going to hire someone, the first thing they're going to do is just look down and see how much work they've done in the space. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be at a big team. It can be, I've run my local soccer club, and, because it shows you've put in the effort.
Yeah. I mean, you can, even with a full-time job, you can get a lot of sports experience. Like in San Diego alone, I mean, there's a half marathon, a marathon, a color run, a 5K, a Tough Mudder, a Spartan race, something going on every single weekend. So you can get experience in sport, and pretty good experience, without quitting your full-time job. So to go back to your earlier question, we are a mix of people who have come from a career and saying, I don't want to be in banking or whatever I'm doing now. I just can't picture myself doing this the next 50 years. And transitioning into sport is their main goal. So for those folks, it's great because they're used to going to work 5-6 days a week. And so they'll transition right into like, oh, that 2 days a week that I have off, I'm going to find a company and see if they need an intern 18, 20 hours a week. So you have those people going right in and throwing themselves into the industry. So they come out with almost a year's worth of experience in the year that they're here in San Diego. If they're not working somewhere part-time, they might have 5, 6, 7 projects going on at once with classmates, but a sponsorship project, a college athletics sponsorship project, or an analytics project maybe for publication or something like that. They're always working toward something down the road.
And do you have, because you've shown there the teams and the groups that have hired, do you have teams and groups sort of reaching out to you saying, Scott, we need these are the kind of things we need? Or do you have interns, or we've got this project that we just can't get solved? Can you send your students to that?
Yeah, all the time. It's usually alumni, because they know how good the students are and they know that they can get quality work, and they know the classes that they're taking and the skills that they're getting. So anyone out there is going to come to us and say, okay, I don't have time to get to this, but my company's launching a new product. I need you guys to do some focus groups. I need you to do some research on competition. I need to do pricing strategy. Like, we've done all that. They know that the students are going to do that. So students with pro teams, with private companies, with brands, they'll come to us not only to say, hey, can you get this done? But I've got an opening on my team. I know you guys graduate in June, and they're free and clear. But you also have another 24 or so students a year around Thanksgiving, end of November, looking for an internship opportunity. So they'll come on board all the time with alumni because they know that they're getting quality. They know that they've been vetted, selected, and been put through the ringer through the year that they're here, because that's what the alumni demand. Like I run this program as if every single student could be hired on the spot with one of our alumni, because that's what they've tasked me to do, is to keep this program going, keep the quality up, and make sure that people can be successful in sports. Because if we were putting people out there and they were falling on their face and not getting jobs, like, we should shut the door and close it down. But we are successful because we push the students hard, because that's what the industry requires.
And how much, I see your desk covered with sports business journals and magazines and those kind of things. Are they the extras on the Sports MBA, in that you're saying, we're going to teach you all these things, but this is the other layer of industry knowledge that you've got to have? Yeah,
that's a given. I mean, SBJ is they get it the week they start. They get digital and print, and they're expected to read it weekly. We also do the cupboards here are full of sports business books, so we do book reviews every couple of months. The students will read some kind of sport business book and report back to the group. They'll also, if they go and intern somewhere, they'll come back and say, "Hey, here's what I noticed at this triathlon. These were the major partners. Looks like a couple of these are local." They'll report back on some sport business organizations. And every year I learn something new. Like I tell them to do a San Diego based company. And this year I think it was a half dozen companies I'd never heard of. So we'll reach out to them. We'll tag them on social and say, "Hey, we just did a project on, at something stand up paddle boards." And inevitably that person will get back to me and say, "You did what now? And wow, that's great. Like, I'm kind of swimming upstream here. Could you give me some help? And we could really use some marketing help." And there's no shortage of people that are looking for assistance. And these students having all of this time off throughout the year to work on extra projects, that's sort of the sizzle that goes with the steak. Like we have a great MBA program, yes, but all that extra stuff is going to be what really sets you apart from all the other great MBA programs. I mean, there are top-ranked MBA programs whose people want to work in sport as well. I mean, there's no more eye-opening experience than going to the Sloan Conference and seeing all the MIT MBAs who would love to work in sport. And I know that that's a great MBA program, but how do we stack up against them? How are we getting people into the industry? It's because they're doing all the extra things that are afforded to them being in this location in San Diego, and having the program structured so that your class project, we'll drive up to Anaheim and present to Graham at the Ducks, and not just do it in a vacuum and present to the professor. Like there's a lot of value in tying what you're learning into the actual industry and what they need.
So, where do people find out more about it? Where do they get in touch with you? What's the best way to do that?
We are at SDSU for San Diego State. SDSU Sports MBA, sports with an S, on pretty much every social platform. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Please check us out. We're SDSU Sports MBA.
And when's the next intake?
We are accepting applications now. So we start every January. So we will be accepting people through the fall, and folks will be coming in starting the class of 2019 will be in January 2018. So
what's the application process? Do people fill out a form? Is there interviews?
Yeah, it's actually pretty thorough. If you think about it from the sport perspective, like it's a draft, really. We want to select the people that are right for our system. So we require the GMAT or GRE, which is, a pain. It's a hurdle to clear, but it lets us know that you're serious, that you've got the
So explain
skills.
That for people who don't know what that is.
So the GMAT is the traditional GMAT. That's the traditional entrance exam for MBA programs.
Okay.
That's you sit. There's a English language component and a math quantitative component. The GRE has typically been over the years for any type of other graduate school, but most business schools now accept both.
Okay.
So the GRE is a little different, but very similar again. English,
so it's
math,
effectively a pre-test.
Standardized test. Yeah. And it's a beast. Both of them, they're difficult. They're expensive. They take time to study for. But for us, it's a great way to see who's serious about this, because we're pretty tough. This is not an easy cakewalk, type of a.
Well, you want to set the bar high.
Because you have to be good to get into sport, and we don't want to take people who won't make it.
So you've done these pre-tests. Then the next step would be
is to we have an online application, and once you get into our system or contact us here in the office, we do actually 2 interviews. So interview with me and you interview with an alum. And the alum is either geographically. So if you're in Australia, you're going to be talking to Jesse in Melbourne. Or we try to do it in person as much as possible. But we have sometimes if it's in San Francisco and we've got 24 alumni there at, 2 with the Warriors, 1 at GMR, 1 at Google. So we'll have you talk to someone who I think will be a good career mentor for you. So that interview is another box to check. We actually require like a PDF or PowerPoint or Keynote. So 5 slides, nothing major, but just to tell us about your background, your leadership. Like, why are you applying to this program? What is it about this place? And what is it about you? And then an essay, just a short. It sounds like a lot, but it's not too bad. Considering the work you have to do when you're here, it's not that bad because not everybody looks great on paper. Like if you look back at your grades from undergrad and go, whoa, I wish if I had a time machine, I'd go back and fix my attendance or my doing papers the night before they were due policies or whatever. So we give people a chance to really prove that they want to be here and that they're qualified. So those standardized tests are one big part, but the others is getting to know.
Because if you've got that work history or you've got different experiences that you can bring to the table.
Yeah, and if you're projected to be, again, going back to the sports, if I can project with our faculty that you're going to be a good student, that you're going to work hard, you might be an amazing sponsorship sales executive down the road. But if we don't like the looks of your GPA from 10 years ago, we're making a big mistake. So we give you a chance to prove that this is who I am. That's who I was. This is who I am now. And show us that you can project out to be a good executive, whether it's, you might just be a social media whiz. So your keynote might be all video and things that speak to your skills. So it doesn't have to be just cut and dried like, oh, here's my essay about pay for players in NCAA. Like it gives you a chance to tell your story.
Well, terrific. Well, thank you very much for hosting me here. After this, I'm going to go talk to the students and so I'll give my recap of that after this. But thank you very much for hosting me, bringing me down to San Diego and taking a walk down past Comic-Con and a tour of the campus. Very much appreciate it.
Thank you, Sean. This has been a dream of mine for a while. I've listened to almost every Sports Geek podcast, so it'll be really great to be a part of that crew.
Terrific. Oh, well, you're now part of the alumni. You've got your Sports Geek T-shirt.
I got it.
You'll have the Sports Geek sticker on the back of the iMac.
And my stubby holder, so that's great.
You've got your stubby holder already. So, thanks a lot for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, Sean.
Sign up for Sports Geek News at sportsgeekhq.com/sign up now.
Thanks again to Scott Minto. You can follow him and send him a tweet on Twitter. Very active in that space. SDSU Sports MBA will find him. And it was, as I said, after that conversation I had with Scott in his office, we went to, and I went and did a lecture with the SDSU sports grads. It was good. I think the key takeaways for mine and the key things that I sort of emphasised to them was understanding the tech. I showed them the Chief Martech 5000, the changing marketing technology landscape. But I said the main thing is just get into the Facebook ads and start understanding the Facebook ads. Actually did effectively extra work with Amy Wesson, who's now at the Ducks, a recent graduate, on the train ride home, explaining the power of Facebook audiences and diving in there. Even if you're not running an ad, there's a lot of data there that you can use. Then, the other part was using the tools that potentially will be part of your job every day. We all know that chatbots and messenger bots are on the horizon and teams are building them. So if you're going to be building chatbots and understanding how they work, you've got to start by using them. So go to the Messenger store, start using a few chatbots to see how media companies are using them. Then you'll know how to, as I say, steal with pride, take the best features and embed them into yours. And then my advice to students every time is, every day you're networking and leverage platforms like LinkedIn. It's a super valuable tool. And it's one that, to mine, is still underutilized. As someone that overutilizes it. I love LinkedIn and love what it has offered me, both professionally and personally, and connecting with people. As I mentioned there in the conversation with Scott, recording this post-C conference in Atlanta, I'm actually recording this intro and outro at the site of my first C conference. I'm in the I'm in the conference hall of JW Marriott, just trying to find a quiet spot, and this is actually the location of my my first seat, but way back in 2011. So I'm going to give you some insights and some recaps. I'm still getting my thoughts together around some of the content, but a quick recap. Part one, I really enjoyed the data focus. I spent probably more time in the data track this year. I really enjoyed Russell Scabetti's session. Russell Scabetti from Core, who's obviously been on the podcast a couple of times, where they discussed the fan engagement metric. And rather than just people talking about it, he started making it an interactive session and asking people to contribute and things like that. And so it made everyone a little bit uncomfortable for an early session. But it was great to actually start seeing some ways that you could measure fan engagement. And so Russell did a great job. One of my favourite sessions was on valuing sponsorship with data and analytics. I just caught up with Aaron Prober from the LA Clippers for lunch while I'm in LA here to dive in further on the way that they go about it, in the way that they go about measuring engagement, views, impressions, to be able to represent that as a media value back to their partners, which gives them a lot more flexibility when they're looking to deliver, and they don't stay committed to frankly dead or poor content. And I really was impressed with Michael Wu of the Warriors in the way that they're going about selling their content, and also his story as someone who was a podcast listener, and thank you very much for listening, Michael. But then also that he made the jump outside of sports to come into a job at the Warriors, and went up against 800 candidates and got the gig. So it just shows you that if you want to get into sports, having talent like Michael is pretty much paramount. And I could not do a recap of Seat without mentioning Shane, Don't Stop Believing Harmon. I had an absolute blast with Shane at this Seat, both in sessions, multiple discussions around the networking into the wee hours, and with a little bit of singing and dancing, but it's always fun to catch up with Shane. And yeah, terrific conversation, terrific sports biz conversations every time I do. So that's, I guess, part one of my recap of Seat in Atlanta. Please check out sportsgeekcampaigns.com. A lot of the discussion around the sponsorship, like what Aaron and Michael were doing in the valuations, we're pulling together the best practice in the rate card development, because rate card is the basis for Sports Geek campaigns, and be able to appropriately, one, value it, but then also execute it. So please check out sportsgeekcampaigns.com and our partnership with Tradable Bits. We're really looking forward to rolling that out and helping more teams make more money. Because occasionally I have to remind people that, yes, I do my podcast, but I actually spend the rest of my week working for clients and helping them make more money out of digital. So if you would like my help, please send me an email, Sean@sportsgeekhq.com. And until next episode, you've been listening to the Sports Geek Podcast. Cheers.
Join over 1,000 sports business executives in Sports Biz Slack. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/Slack.
Please leave a review on iTunes. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/iTunes.
Find out how to drive between $8,000 and $30,000 in profit for each digital campaign you sell sponsors. Check out sportsgeekcampaigns.com. Just like Jimmy Butler, you can call Sean anytime at 614-407-0407-200.